The Seminoles of Florida, a tribe that has suffered unmeasurable tragedies during their long and complex history. Yet despite loss of culture and immense poverty, were still able to triumph and grow to be the leaders of the largest Native American gaming empire the world has ever seen. With more than 2,000 Seminoles still living in Hollywood, Big Cypress, Brighton, Immokalee, Fort Pierce, and Tampa, to understand these unconquered people, you have to go back, way back. Seminole history begins with a band of just 300 Creek Indians from Georgia and Alabama who migrated to the former territory of the Appalachee in Spanish Florida. It was at this time that the people began to be referred to as the Seminoles. The name Seminole means wild people or runaway, and was created because the Seminoles were not just leaving the Creek tribe, they were escaping. As the tribe started to grow, they took in slaves that managed to escape from surrounding states. Andrew Jackson, a powerful military general at the time, sent the U.S. military to invade Seminole villages. This invasion of Seminole land began the Seminole Wars in 1817, starting with the first, then the second, and finally a third. The Seminoles' refusal to leave Florida led to many battles and deaths. After the three wars, as many as 2,000 soldiers and over 3,000 Seminoles were killed. Not only did the United States lose thousands of soldiers, but they also lost $60 million to the war effort. By the end of the Third Seminole War, the Seminoles were a shell of what they once were. Only a small band of Seminoles managed to stay hidden in the Big Cypress Swamp, and nearly all the Seminoles who live in Florida today are descendants of this band. The Seminoles lost many tribe members, leading to poverty and eventual loss of unique Seminole culture. Only in the past few decades have the Seminoles re-emphasized their culture, like traditional textile making, clothing, cuisine, buildings, their language, and more. While the American government eventually created reservations for the Seminoles, there was less and less space for the Seminoles to work and carry on their way of life. They became one of the poorest tribes in the country because of their tragic history and their sole dependence on the federal government for funding. So, instead of continuing to be reliant for money, they made it their mission to be a federally recognized tribe by 1957. Even up until the 70s, the Seminoles had to work hard to gain basic rights, re-establish their culture, and fight their way out of poverty. Being one of the poorest tribes in the United States at the time, the federal government attempted to take advantage of their fragile way of life. The government continuously strived to relocate and separate tribal members in order to limit interaction between them. In 1974, the U.S. Congress passed the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, which provided for greater tribal control over economic and political affairs. When the act was passed, it gave natives a sense of hope. They would finally be able to pass and implement rules according to their standards, and eventually create businesses which would help lower their poverty levels. This was supposed to allow the Seminole tribe to expand its economic base, which they chose to do so by entering the cigarette business. But the idea was strongly contested by a local vendor and the state. So, instead of selling cigarettes outside of the reservation, the tribe decided they needed to try something a little different. By the late 70s, the tribe began running high-stakes bingo games and selling tax-free cigarettes on reservation lands. In 1981, Broward County protested against the tribe's right to hold bingo games, which paved the way for one of the biggest and most important cases in Seminole history. The Seminole Tribe of Florida v. Butterworth. But to understand this incredibly complex case, you're going to need to know the history.
In 1979, the bingo hall opened, running games several nights a week with prizes running from, I believe, $250 up to $10,000. We're also offering prizes like cars and trips, things of that nature, to attract people onto the reservation and come play these games. Well, at that time, the sheriff of Broward County, Bob Butterworth, objected. He didn't like the idea. And he claimed, first of all, the tribe was violating the state statute on tribal bingo games, number one. And two, he claimed that the tribe's partner, the manager, was involved in organized crime.
Even without evidence, Butterworth went into court and attempted to stop the tribe from running bingo games. The trial court didn't agree. However, they proposed that Broward County deputies observe a Seminole bingo game.
And of course, the tribe wasn't comfortable with that position, and it went into court to stop the sheriff from doing anything as far as its bingo game. And it convinced the trial court that, in fact, it was entitled to run a high-stakes bingo. And I guess the question is, well, how could that be?
The answer is based upon federal law. Back in 1953, the United States Congress decided to enact Public Law 280. The law enabled states to assume criminal and civil jurisdiction in matters involving natives as defendants on reservation land. Butterworth went into court to stop the tribe, arguing that the state charitable bingo law applied to the Seminoles and that it completely prohibited anyone from hosting a profitable bingo game.
The trial court and then the appellate court in Atlanta both agreed that that wasn't the case at all. That in fact, the state charitable bingo law was a civil regulatory law. And therefore, because the state policy was not to prohibit charitable bingo games or prohibit bingo games, but was to allow it, but regulate it, that therefore the tribe was free to run its own high-stake bingo games and was immune from the state law.
After the case, the National Indian Gaming Commission was created and was made in order to support tribal economic growth, self-sufficiency, and strengthen tribal governments through gaming on Indian lands. Profitable bingo aided the Seminoles and eventually helped lead to their future success. After buying out the Hard Rock in 2007 from Rank Group plc, a British gaming and leisure company, the Seminoles successfully created one of the most prosperous international businesses. They now own hotels, casinos, concert venues, and cafes in over 60 countries, two of the most popular in Florida, where it all started. Although the tribe has faced many obstacles, they have shown time and time again that they are open to evolution and expansion, like the brand new opening of the Hard Rock Hotel in New Jersey and the brand new Guitar Hotel currently being built in Hollywood, Florida. However, the Seminoles are not only in it for themselves. By causing the federal law to change, the Seminoles have helped many other tribes outside Florida build their very own casino businesses, allowing them to create their own brands and means of earning profit. The shift in federal law has made societal and economic impacts on the tribes all throughout the nation. The Seminoles were once one of the most impoverished tribes in the US, but are now one of the fiercest competitors in the gaming industry. Although the Seminoles suffered immense tragedies during the Seminole Wars and disagreements with the federal government, they fortunately persevered and triumphed, leading these unconquered people to create the largest gaming empire the world has ever seen, and helped many other tribes along the way. However, there's still a long way to go. Despite the Seminole Hard Rock chain's value resting over $1.6 billion, Native Americans as a whole are still considered to be the poorest group of people by census data, with the average income just shy of $5,000 a year. Luckily, many of these tribes can look at the path paved by the triumph of the Seminoles and feel a sense of hope that one day they too can triumph.